Thanks for tuning back in to the CIO Lifeline. Today, we talk about cybersecurity in banking. We have Scott Schaefer from Marquette Savings Bank in Erie, Pennsylvania. You're going to want to stick around for this episode because you learn about the thought process and what keeps him up at night. And is banking any different or any more strict when it comes to protections in their environment? He has oversight over the website, employees, and operations in general. You don't want to miss this episode. And if you haven't yet, see that little square in the lower left, that little CIO Lifeline logo? Give that a click, hit subscribe. Much appreciated. We have episodes twice a month, as you know. You'll get notifications when they come up. You're not going to get spammed. Your support is always appreciated. Thank you for listening and tuning in. Try to keep it near there so that'll capture you.
Oh, come on, Audrey. I look like hell. I got bags under my eyes. That's Bush. Bush League.
I wanted to fix. No, your color's good. I was going to flip that around so it's not all. Okay, perfect.
All right.
Audrey! Look at me!
All right, ready?
Okay. I'm sorry. All right. I'm sorry.
Information Security Director.
Information Security Director.
Go time.
Welcome back to the CIO Lifeline. I'm joined here today with Scott Schaefer from Marquette Savings Bank. Scott is the Information Security Director. How are we doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So, Scott, tell me a little bit about your role with Marquette, how long you've been there, and just a general sense of your day-to-day.
Sure. I've been with Marquette just about shy of 17 years. I started as an intern here at Gannon and worked my way through the ranks. Day-to-day activity is just as crazy as it is for every other, I assume, cyber director or information security director. Constant alerts and checking and making sure your security posture looks good, making sure your employees are up to date on training, and that we are protecting both the bank and the consumer customer.
So a big part of your day, I would assume, involves your website for your customers?
Sure.
Okay. And you have responsibility over the entire Marquette footprint?
Sure.
All right. And you mentioned employee training. So does that involve phishing exercises and other tools?
Yeah, I would say phishing is one of the biggest things that I really try to push. Obviously, right now, I think it's safe to say almost anybody would say that human is the biggest weakness at a company right now.
Definitely.
The companies put all these doors in place to stop these events from happening. So the bad actor, therefore, is going around these softwares that are stopping their attempts and going directly after that customer, or that employee, to make a mistake, i.e. phishing, clicking a link, responding with some kind of personal information. That is an ongoing battle, to say the least.
You bring up a good point with employees, because if we could just fire everybody, we would be 100% protected. But we know that's not reality. And so how often do you do your phishing exercises? I'm just trying to get a sense of the training, and is it a lot of eye rolling with employees? Do they find it overbearing?
Yes and no. I think definitely at the beginning when we began it, I got a lot of a response of, you're just trying to trick us. You're trying to get us in trouble.
Correct.
Boom! And that's exactly my answer is yes, I am. And typically, at least to start, I'm making these tests at the beginning anyway, a lot easier than some of these tests or some of these real phishing attempts are coming out as, because what I want to do is kind of just burn their brain into reviewing each email as they come in. Just because it's from Scott doesn't mean it's from Scott. You really have to even look at the sender. It could be as simple as a misspelling, Scott with one T, but you see my name up there enough and glance over it and just don't notice that missing letter there, and it looks all legitimate. So if they didn't directly spoof my email, they did just change it and create something very close to it, like they do with businesses. They name it something, customer support at companyabc.com. So it looks like it might have came from them, but it's not actually spoofing that email.
You can even hover over the email address to
Yeah,
expose
the link.
what the
Yeah,
real address is.
I know AI is starting to hide that as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I always push that. Hover that link. It usually goes to some garbage site.
Yeah.
But if AI can start tricking that, but it boils down to look for other common things like signatures. If it's someone that you're used to dealing with, does the signature look right? Sometimes there's a lot of copy and paste that might have grabbed wrong or something like that when they're trying to pretend. Um, Other than that, you go back to the common sense. Was this something I'd be sending you? Does this make sense? And if there's ever that question, pick up the phone and call the person if you know them. Hey, did you send me this link with this? Oh yeah, that was me.
Yeah, gut feel. There's something to that, right?
Would the CEO randomly text me on a Saturday night, say, hey, I need this wire done? No. If you look at any kind of policy with disaster or anything, or extortion or robbery or anything like that, the first line of every policy is don't panic, which is so easy to say, like you're not going to panic when there's a gun or something in your back. What all this has done is the repetitiveness is just to make it to react by second nature, because there will be a panic if something happens. But by seeing this so often, seeing these examples and tests so much, that these things will just come to you instantly without thinking, is the end game hope. As far as the amount, it really varies. I mean, I would love to do one every day if I had time to, but we usually grab a handful here and there, at least monthly. We'll go over that afterwards. After that scenario runs, I'll send an email out to all employees saying, this is what went out in case you didn't get it. These are the 4 or 5 things that should have stood out to you if you got this, that made this a bad email to begin with, or that you should have caught.
I assume you don't call anybody out that clicked, right?
No.
Because we're not trying to pass out scarlet letters and, but have you ever get your boss to click?
Or
the CEO? We're on record.
No, they are tremendous, and they always are always top of the line. But actually, we do have a very good foothold with our our board of trustees, with our CEO, our COO, our CIO. Back when I started 15 years ago, they might have been excluded from those tests because you couldn't call out someone above you. But that is not the case anymore. They all welcome it, and they want it, because you got to think, especially these type people are some of the bigger targets. These bad actors are going to go after them directly because they have the keys to the kingdom.
Sure. And one thing I typically hear in the C-suite is well, we're not big enough, or we're under the radar. Why do people care? And there's still some educational elements here that we have to keep reinforcing, because there are bots that are out there that are
Right.
that are no one's immune. It could be Joe's Bakery down the street, right? So, but I would think banks would be a huge target. Well, let me ask you this: what keeps you up at night?
Obviously, the phishing. That's always going to be a number one answer for me. And really, a big thing is we're really seeing aggressive lately is just vulnerabilities being found in different active softwares now. We've seen it with the MoveIt software. We've seen it in a couple other products that are out there. Another thing that keeps me up at night is companies that are multi-billion-dollar companies that are being hit with ransomware, that are being hit with attacks. And to think the amount of money that they put into their employees and the money they put into their training and their security equipment and their security software, and that still finds a way through, is a little nerve-wracking, because you're hanging with the top tier. It's just never ending.
You bring up a good point, because I would say the moment you feel relaxed or that everything is going well, it's time to reinvent yourself, or remind yourself that this job never ends.
No.
Because the headlines, back when ransomware was an early a thing, I felt like you just watched the news and there was always Target and MoveIt, and even cybersecurity companies falling victim. So yeah, what's your MFA strategy or recommendation?
Multi-factor, it's definitely a must anymore. If it's offered, use it. It's just another layer.
For both remote and in office, or is it?
If you can, yeah,
Okay.
I would. Absolutely. It's just another layer. A big thing you're going to think about in security is, layers of defense. But you want to lock as many doors as you can. Multi-factor is just another one. So if they get that username and password and they try to log in as me, then I'm going to get that text message or that email saying, here's your code that you need to log in. So it's just another step to help protect yourself. As annoying as it can get, it's a lot more annoying to try to go through identity theft and then have to look up or confirm a 5-digit code.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I gripe about having to change my password every 90 days, and I'm an IT guy, with banking systems and other credit card companies, anytime that my account's been compromised, and it's happened, that's by far the largest hassle. But
Well, and to your point there, I know a lot of are saying now, with these bigger companies being compromised, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they use it. Some type of information's out there, and it's a matter of time when they use it. So and what you want to do with that is if they only have bits and pieces of a type of information, you want everything else locked down as much as they can so they can't guess your authentication. Another big thing is like passwords.
Mhm.
Obviously, I don't want employees to use the same password to get into the network that they're using for their Gmail at home, and that's a big
back to the education, right?
right.
Yeah,
And that's a big thing. One password they use for 30 different applications. So if that one password's cracked somewhere along the line, they're running wild.
Sure.
Again, we're back to the keys of the kingdom. They can get in anything they want.
So passwords, interesting, because there's a couple schools of thought here. I mean, first, I'd like to understand how you would define a strong password. I mean, we know there's the uppercase, lowercase numbers, symbols, but length, but again, and also your thoughts on, as I mentioned, there's a couple schools of thought, but that the traditional password's going away, that you'll just use a tool like Duo, and it's basically MFA anywhere, and the concept of a password is going away. So let's start with your definition of a strong password.
Like anything, we've really seen the password, develop over the years. Like you said, everybody knows the uppercase and lowercase. When starting out, it was, we recommend, and unfortunately, some software and some sites still only, don't care how strong it is. A lot do require it to be so strong now. But before, when it was only 2 of the 4, now it is all 4 mostly. I would recommend using, an uppercase, a lowercase, special character, and number.
What about length?
Length, I believe we're suggesting about 8 to 10 right now. I don't. I mean, that eventually always going to grow. If it was up to me, I would say use 15 to 20.
Yeah, because then you're past the rainbow table
Right.
concept.
Right, and that's what a lot of people don't understand too. Is I always say, if you run a password cracker, which we've done, you can essentially get any password if you give it time. I mean, it might take 10 years to crack if it's good enough, but you're like you said, the rainbow tables, which for that's going to go through the common dictionary words and everything like common passwords that's on that list every year, which I don't know if I'm sure you've seen before. The common lit passwords for 2023, which
Password 99 with an @ for the A. No one will crack that.
Summer 2023 exclamation mark.
Right. Well, and I've seen businesses. I mean, they'll dedicate a powerful engineering machine that's just meant to go through all the hashes in your organization and crack them.
Mm-hmm.
And then for those who get cracked, go into the employee or just sending an email and say, hey, we need you to change your password. And,
right. Which we've done in the past is we've run a cracker, and we have tools in place to make sure that our users are using such a complex or strong enough password that we required. But we also have run a cracker in the past, and like you mentioned with the rainbow tables, I'll run that occasionally, and I'll only run it for a short period of time because that's going to just grab that that low hanging fruit.
Sure.
I want to weed out those easy summer 2023 passwords.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, when that does happen, I then see their password. That when I email them privately, like we just we're disabling your account, you have to change your password immediately, and then follow these requirements. We usually send the password policy, but like I said, since then, we've also added a secondary piece of software that doesn't even allow them to set that password to like get around because.
So it's checking
Correct.
against call it the rainbow table. And
Right.
I like that.
So that's another layer there. And then
So do you get employee hate mail for all these protections that are in place?
yeah, we get some complaints, especially for the more novice user. I think, like I said, I think to an extent everybody has somewhat of an understanding of how important this all is now, because it's happening not just at work. As you mentioned, it's happening to people at home from their credit card companies.
Yeah, you're right. I do feel like it's baked in the cake.
Right.
Being in banking, are you required to do attack and pen tests and outside audits on your security posture within?
Yeah, we have examiners come in and audits come in. We like to stay on top of it. We also hire an IT consultant company that we use. We've had a good partnership with for years, that comes in and performs a internal and external pen testing for us.
And is that an annual exercise, or
Yeah, we actually have them come twice a year.
Twice a year? Huh. And is there always findings? I always find and I mean that in a positive way, right? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Yeah, there's always going to be something.
Yeah.
Just with technology changing so much, it's basically a race to keep up with the bad actors. They're changing their techniques, which just in turn makes us have to change our techniques.
And do you see a generational divide between employees? So the younger gen, it's like, I'm used to this, versus like, is there challenges in training and adoption? I mean, I know you have tools in there to help force the issue, but you still change management and empathy.
Yeah, right.
These are all the soft sides of what we do, right?
Yeah, and there's a little bit of pros and cons there on both sides. I think with the older generation that's newer to the world of technology and the developing of apps and everything else, but they're also more in depth to take the training, to learn, to kind of figure out what's going on and what makes it happen. Where the younger crew that might already know about this kind of brush it off and like, I already know about this. So while the younger crew probably knows more than the older generation, there sometimes is a pushback more from the younger crew than the older, because been there, done that type of thing.
Sure. And I think about the advances in AI. That scares me, because the bots that you would typically try to infiltrate companies today, I feel like it's that on steroids. And I
touched base on that earlier on a conversation, was with the phishing. One of the biggest thing always in phishing, the real phishing attempts, it was usually, or a lot of times, was from a foreign person. So the grammar was always bad. There was bad misspellings,
Sure.
misuse of the English language. Where now, when this AI comes in, the emails are being written perfect, like a grammar professor wrote it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's writing. I've used it once, and my boss called me out because she thought it was too good for me. Like, it was too proper. I mean, so we're really going to lose that foreign aspect of phishing from emails.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's not just the email itself; it's also the voice. What can be recreated.
And we actually had that discussion as well the other day. We've seen just recently in the news that happened, that they're taking sound bits and making the voice to answer. We were just talking with a coworker about a news anchor that put together and said that they had his wife kidnapped. And
that was, I saw that. Yeah. And it was convincing.
Yeah. I mean, and what, you get a phone call from what sounds to be your wife, what's the first thing? Again, we go back to that, instant panic. The first thing you're going to do is panic, especially if it sounds there.
That's right. And back to the training element, right?
Right.
Like so if you get that
step back,
right, you get that voice call, think, text her, call her back, things that, and it's hard. It's hard to say in the moment, right? You just never know. That's like when people click something they shouldn't, usually just because they're busy.
Right.
There's so much going on, and now you have
right.
Free Pizza Friday from and we're not fair on our phishing campaigns too. So when someone says you're being unfair, thank you.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Because they're not going to give you any red flags. They want.
No.
And the thing is, they're throwing a wide net. They might send 10,000 emails. If they get 3 people to click, that's a win for them for that day. Sure, they got three keys right there.
Exactly.
So it just takes one person, and then run from there.
Okay.
And then you can pivot off that one workstation or one person.
You
and
can. So now it's back to network segmentation,
Right.
multiple, especially in IT. I mean, I'm sure you have your credentials for your, call it day job, but the more elevated tasks in your organization's probably another set of credentials.
Right.
And, so if someone gets in, when they get in, I liked yours, not if, it's when. How do we keep them in the lane and be able to hit the remediation button and start to forensically dig in, right? So
Yeah, hopefully, you have enough controls in place that never happens.
Yeah.
I also, there's like, we go back to that training. There's not just controls on the back end with your software and your SOCs and everything else on the back end protecting you. Of course, your firewalls and everything else. But you have your preventative controls, like we keep talking about the training, preventative authentication. That's not just for bankers. That's for a consumer as well. A family member just recently had that with the grandson scam. A grandson that lived out of state.
Mhm.
They got a call with the voice and said he was in jail, was getting arrested for a DUI. And it was a lawyer, and he could get him out. He needed to get money over to him right away. And they were very close to doing it. And they said, whoa, let's step back here for a second.
Yeah.
Did we confirm this anywhere? Did we call the courthouse? And it turned out it was. We finally did get a hold of the grandson, and he had no idea what we were talking about. And somewhere that information was found, and they ran with it.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah,
I had an employee, a different department, but where I work, this person was in the checkout line with gift cards because the CEO, and this was a text phish. Gift cards for an important customer. I'm unable to get it. Can you please get these, and I'll tell you where to mail them. And in the checkout line, that's when the thought went off, like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right.
Come on, boy. Go get it. Come on.
And picked up the phone and
just take a step back is what I say. If there's any question at all, take one step back, and because that's what they want, fast reactions. And it's when you give it that second is usually when something stands out to you.
That's good advice, and that advice applies to every scenario we talked about today, and that is just take a breath. Someone calls, it's your wife, your kid, and it's a kidnap. All right, let's take a breath, take a pause. So no, I think that's great advice. All right, Scott, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
This was great information, certainly helpful for all our viewers, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
What's your admin password at Marquette's?
Mark123.
Bird 123 exclamation point capital B. Thank you. Mark, Scott is in charge of cyber protections. I will start that over. Welcome back to the CIO Lifeline. I'm your host, Tony Darden, joined today with Scott Schaefer from Marquette Savings Bank. Mark, let you introduce yourself. I said Mark again. I want him to be Mark.
I could be Mark. I don't know.
Today you're Mark.
Because of Marquette. I think you get stuck.
Yeah, Mark from Marquette. Welcome back to the CIO Lifeline. I'm your host, Tony Darden, joined with Scott Schaefer from Marquette Savings Bank. Usually the fifth time we get it right. Today I have Scott Schaefer from Marquette Savings Bank. Mark is the information security. You're all right.
All right.
Gosh. Do we have a notary here? Because I really want you to be Mark. Joined today with Scott Schaefer from Marquette Savings Bank. Scott is the Information Security Director. Mark, how are we doing today?
I did it again. You got through the first one.
I did.
Could tomorrow